Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Morning,
Morning.
Stuart. Morning, Henning.
Hope everybody is
Hey,
fine.
Ivor, I see your name. How are you?
Oh, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Bit of a flu, but otherwise all right. Yeah, all good. If I sound a bit strange, that's the Med Lemon talking. Good. Yeah, nice to be in this room. Sure.
Morning, Ken.
Morning, Skura. Hi, Henning.
Hi,
Wally from
Morning,
hi.
Cape
Ken.
Town.
Oh, Walter, all the usual suspects. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Bit dark down here, of course, and
Yeah,
cold.
true.
Looking
Geez, I was
forward to your presentation. Yes.
I was looking at the KZNIA YouTubes of the award ceremony, and you were scurrying around in the background. I was watching it last night just to get a bit of
Oh,
context.
dear. Oh, dear. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, true. It was a while ago. Cool. Good.
Well, morning
So,
again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. This morning we have Henning Rasmuss to speak to us. So Henning founded Crux Architects Africa in 2022 as a technology-rich, people-centered architecture, master planning, and space planning business. Crux Architects Africa has a strong focus on the dynamic property development and the design construct industry on the African continent. With many years of experience, Henning has developed a distinct, forward-looking, and optimistic approach to architecture. He understands and utilizes the practice of architecture as a form of communication and storytelling, unique to the environments, cultures, and communities he works in. Henning's passion lies in implementing projects in limited and less diversified economies on the African continent. His interests include business development, contract law, and intercultural communication. Henning focuses on key project delivery relationships that require exceptional combination of skill, expertise, and team-based working. Thank you so much, Henning, for allowing to speak to us. Over to you.
okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for attending. I see there's a large number of participants. That's great. I feel I like doing these kind of talks for colleagues. Some of this is aimed maybe at younger colleagues. I don't want to make an assumption about the age mix, but I wanted to share today perspectives on practice, and they may be partially, I could call it a philosophy of how I approach my work. It mixes in a bit of geopolitics. It is supposed to be, the intent is to be encouraging. I have found that in architectural audiences where I'm in rooms with a lot of architects, there is often a victim attitude. There's a lot of wailing and teeth grinding and gnashing about the clients we haven't got, the opportunities we haven't got, the economies we aren't in, the things we can't get done, the people we don't have. So I want to address some of that because it's and I really don't like talking about my work. I was a director of Paragon for 25 years. I'm so done with being an co-author or director of a practice that does iconic architecture. It bores me to death, so I don't want to talk about my work, my projects. There's a portion of this talk that includes projects, but I'm happy to skip it. We will probably run out of time. So this is not about look at me, look at me. I wanted to share perspectives, and it's really starts with this. I have strong opinions on just about any topic in the world, and what I say are simply things that I have seen, things I've understood, and things I believe to be true for myself. I'm not here to preach. I'm not expecting the audience to share my views. You can throw tomatoes at me. You can also interrupt me. It's a lot of pictures, a lot of ideas. I am going to pace it quickly, but please interrupt me. I don't like making the chat visible. I've asked the organizers to please interrupt if somebody has a question to ask. Don't keep a question or a comment to the end. We all lose our plot and drift off. So with that, I want to get going, and thank you for your time. I hope I make it worthwhile. So I find, I mean, after kind of 30 plus years of practice, I'm really quite mesmerized by this word. Like, we build architectural practices, like a legal practice, like a doctor's practice. We wouldn't want our doctor to only be practicing or our lawyer to only be practicing. We ask them to be perfect. Our brain surgeon must be kind of really good at brain surgery. But as architects, our clients expect us to also be perfect. But actually, I've wanted to dwell for a moment on this word of practice, because there are two English spellings of it. There's the one with an S at the end and the one with a C at the end. We build practices. That's the one with a C at the end. That's where we work. That's where we have to be perfect. But every day, all we are asked to do is practice. And it's super liberating, because this thing that we do is so diffuse and so vast. And there are so many places on this huge bus of architecture. And all we are asked to do is to keep at it. Practice, in the English spelling with an S at the end, is the ongoing application to something by kind of keeping at it so that you get better, that you get proficient at it. The aim is to become proficient. The starting point is not proficiency. So I wanted to share that. So, like, every now and then when the weasels close into everybody in the room, just take a breather, pat yourself on the back, ask yourself if you are still practicing. Like when you learned the piano or the guitar, or when you learned to play cricket. Are you still practicing? Are you getting out of bed to do your best as part of a team? So that's, and I find this liberating for myself. And I've been very unpopular saying this in company settings. I've gone, hey, all we have to do is practice. And my previous partners used to go, you can't say that. We know what we do. And so, no, I don't know what I do. I know what I want to achieve, and I know what my values are, and I know how I go through life, but I'm practicing. So these two things I wanted to drag into the beginning of this talk. It fascinates me, and it's an empowering thing. Give yourself a break. Be nice to yourself every now and then. We practice, all of us, as opposed to being perfect. Architecture is never about perfection. I know we all download stuff and we look at books and we look at Norman Foster, who turned 92 days ago, and we go, God, that's perfect. But I'm sure he's got his own shit on his plate. So, or whatever other architects, and we look at the pictures that have been photoshopped, and we kind of go, I wish I was like that. I wish I was like that. And I hate that kind of thing, that perfection thing that washes over us, so that all of us who don't have access to a media machinery and don't practice in a certain superstar way feel inferior. So I wanted to park that. I don't join that crowd. Our job is to unlearn. I'm still unlearning what I learned at university. And nothing bad about my university, but I think most of us spend a good part of our practice life unlearning what we learned. So the continual process of unlearning and not making assumptions and not jumping to conclusions is an important one for me. Like going into a room and going, I want to be back in square one. I want to listen before I know. I want to know the questions before I have the answers. And then I've based my new businesses. There are two of them. One does only data centers, and the other one does all my other African client work. I've based both of those businesses on the values of curiosity and empathy. Empathy deals with people and seeing the world from their perspective, be they contractors, clients, consultants. How do they see me? How do they read my emails? How do they open my drawings? How can I help them? How can I make this thing possible through seeing them, not seeing me? Like this drawing that was so beautiful, but a contractor can't find a dimension for a critical thing on it. But I've got this exquisite 3D model that's good enough for publication. So all of that stuff. Curiosity is just like breaking through, breaking out of markets. I titled this talk, Work Despite Borders. I've been asked variously to talk about being an architect in Africa, and I find that problematic. So I've started going, this is not about Africa. This is about curiosity, going to where I don't know stuff. Curiosity is a driver. Curiosity is why I get out of bed. Curiosity makes my work pleasurable. Curiosity makes me be able to tell stories to my life partner, to my children, to the people who work in my team, to clients. Like, I get out of bed. I practice. Yes, of course I practice to fill my fridge and pay salaries and taxes. But actually, I get out of bed at this stage of my life to end up with stories I can tell. I can tell them to myself, I can tell them to others. I believe that knowledge resides often in stories. Henning, don't forget a single conversation with a person in a professional setting. That's just the way my brain is wired. I have that kind of sponge brain. And so in the setting like this, where I'm talking to 70 odd colleagues, some of that storytelling comes out, and that's how my brain functions, and I'm happy with that. Not every architect's brain functions like that, but that's why I get out of bed, is for storytelling. Why me? Why would I talk in this room? I don't know. I'm a white South African male. The white South African males shouldn't be talking, or maybe they should, but in a constrained way. Like, who am I? I graduated at the end of 1994. I was the last privileged white male. There were, in a class of 45 architects, there were 2 black people. There were maybe 12 to 15 women. And by the time I did my professional exam 2 years later, I think 38 of the 45 people who graduated with me had left the country. So in where I am now, I'm 57 years old. How many architects are there that have 30 years of experience? You can count them by your fingers. So, like, I I now honor and I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had to accrue the experience I have, and experience is super valuable, and that's what I bring to clients. Doesn't mean I can kind of swan it over people. It just means that I don't know everything, but I do have some stories from clients who have had previous successes and clients who have made previous mistakes. So I'm able to go into a room, listen to a conversation, and go, I had a client in Angola who did a similar thing to you. We are in Ghana. Like, my client who did what you're trying to do lost a lot of millions of dollars. So can we just chat about like what you're about to do? Because the decisions are yours, but I think you're about to make a mistake. And that's one of the ways I try to bring down knowledge. It's not about me, it's about painting to my clients a picture of a company they keep where people work in similarly constrained economies. And I mean, I'm talking continentally in Africa. Economies across the continent are broadly defined by being based on few industrial sectors. There's very little resilience and everything is very fragile. Clients are super skilled. They run amazing businesses in those economies, but the economies are quite limited. And so in limited economies, you can end up making really bad decisions. And South Africa is becoming a limited economy. We still have multiple sectors, and we are a broad economy, but it's becoming limited. And what I say to myself and to my family is and I wanted to share it. I believe that the kind of time we are going through in South Africa at the moment are the loud clanking noises of South Africa attaching itself to the continent that it's always been a part of. And that's part of our learning curve as a nation and as a community. We are hearing the clanking sounds of South Africa attaching itself to the continent that it's always been a part of. Why me? So I'm this white South African male. I'm too old to retire young. I'm also like not wealthy enough to retire young. So 3 years ago, I started these new businesses to free myself up from things that were constraining me and people that were holding me back. And I'm difficult to pin down. I'm an Enneagram number 7, so don't put me into a corner. I don't take well to that. Why Africa? I love history. I love geopolitics. I went to school in the 1980s. It's like, what? So for a person like me, even with a love of history, I was supposed to know nothing about Africa because it was the Rooi Gevaar, the red danger. and the swart gevaar. South Africa was full of rooi gevaar and swart gevaar. The African continent was swart gevaar and mostly rooi gevaar. Russia was rooi gevaar. South America was like lunatic right-wing military juntas. And China was rooi gevaar. And now, where are we in the world? We are in the second Cold War. Of all the countries I was taught to know nothing about, I was taught to know nothing about the countries that are in my life now. Russia is in my life. Russia is in our lives. Donald Trump has chosen for us, in fact, our government, by going either on their own or at the behest of somebody else to the ICJ to challenge Israel, has changed the future geopolitics of our country. We are in the corner of, from an American and European maybe less, but from an American Israeli perspective, we are in the bad corner. We are on the dark side. We are part of the bad guys. We are part of BRICS, and BRICS is a bullshit makeup. But actually, where are we? Our future is vested in Russia, not a nice place. China, fascinating, all over Africa. And we are with Brazil, India, Nigeria, Turkey. I can't even, there's 27 countries now. So we are actually in this amazing power block that's growing, but we are already in the second Cold War. I remember going to school and breathing a sigh of relief as a South African born guy from German parents. I was so relieved when the Berlin Wall fell because I grew up with this cloying anxiety about the Cold War. And now we're back. And I honestly thought we would never be back in the Cold War, but we are. In my data center business, I'm in a whole other room where certain technologies are being exited. Okay, there are now Western and Eastern technologies in data centers. Okay, we cannot work for an American client in Ghana and buy a Huawei server router box. So technologies are becoming divided. I may not be telling many of you new things, but we live in such an exciting time. And South Africa took such an amazing stance to paint itself into the corner where we already are. Okay, honestly, taking on a rogue country when you have an economy that cannot take a hit and going to the ICJ and painting ourselves on the other side is one of the strongest and most liberating moves. Whether or not Israel commits genocide, I don't want to talk about. We can't ever agree on that. But what a move, what an exciting time we live in to look at where our power alliances are and where our future clients are, where the money for our projects is going to come from. It's an amazing time. And South Africa is still this rotunda where the capital of the world goes around. So let me carry on. I'm getting too much into the geopolitics. I want to talk about these borders. There are self-imposed borders. I'm talking about practice. I'm talking about getting out of bed in the morning and having a perception of yourself, of what you're capable of as a practitioner. Where are we? There's always two what? I'm too young. It's too soon. I'm too inexperienced. It's too expensive to go. It's too expensive to try this. It's too expensive to get a piece of software. It's too expensive to commit. I'm too black, or it's too black. I'm too white. It's too white. I am too female. This is for men. This is for black people. This is for white people only. This is for women only. Or I'm a woman, so I can't access. I'm a black person, I can't access. I'm white, I can't access. These are voices we have in our head. We all know where they come from. They come from institutionalized way of making stories, but they're also stories we tell ourselves. So next time you hear the I'm too inexperienced, ask yourself where it comes from. Chances are it comes from your own head. Nobody told you that, but you started believing it. It's too far. This project is too big. This project is too small. The opportunity is too small. I'm too small. My practice is too small. Whatever it is. There's no time. There's no money. There's no people. Okay, these are stories we tell ourselves. There are too many things. I'm too black. I'm too white. There's no time. Too big. Too far. We suffer from too many irrational beliefs. Irrational beliefs are the things that Hollow us out when we are capable of more. Ask yourself what beliefs that you carry around as a practitioner. I'm talking to you as fellow practitioners, as colleagues. How many of the things that you believe about practice and the working world are irrational beliefs? Probably a large number. I follow Bruce Whitfield. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I get probably 80% of the work I have now comes from LinkedIn. This started in COVID, and I never thought this was possible. But I follow Bruce Whitfield, who used to be this financial journalist, and he's transforming into a speaker. Well, he is a speaker, but he's trying to become the speaker. And he shared an amazing thing 3 weeks ago, and I wanted to share it with you. This is about how you talk to yourself, how you talk to your family, how you talk to your colleagues in your office, how you can speak to clients and consultants. Bruce Whitfield said he spent 27 years as a financial journalist being the butt man. So he would sit in a studio, let's say a politician would come to him, let's say the Eastern Cape Minister of Education, whatever, of the Eastern Cape government or Director General, and he would go, "What do you want to do?" And he would say, "Well, we want to build schools, 4,000 schools in 3 years, whatever it is." And Bruce Whitfield said for years it was his job to be the but guy. So the moment somebody had said something, he would go, "But how are you going to do this? But where's the money? But where are the people? But where are the roads? But. And with a but, you close down conversations. And so Bruce shared this wonderful thing. It's probably not his invention. It probably comes from a coach of his. If you can change, if we can change, if with our clients, with our consultants, with our staff, with our partners, we can change from but to and. So when somebody puts something forward, I want to build 4,000 schools in 3 years. Instead of saying, but how are you going to do it? You go, hey, that's great. You want to build 4,000 schools in 3 years. And how are we going to do that given that there are budget constraints? And how are we going to do that in a limited economy where we don't have local manufacturing that can throw up this number of materials? So if we can change our conversations from but conversations to and conversations, we are going to be more powerful. I've started using it in my business already, and I can already see the differences. Just wanted to share that with you. The self-imposed borders may fall suddenly. You can change the way you feel delimited by self-imposed borders, by irrational beliefs. And just one little tool is moving from being the but person to being the and person. So there are imagined borders. Fear. I have a fascination with fear. I believe that you only I'm speaking to practitioners. Let's say there's probably a lot of people in this room who are employees in companies. They probably also have moments of fear, but in practice, the practice of architecture and building a practice with a C at the end, fear is a big driver. I believe that only when you properly shit yourself can you properly focus on stuff like contractual law. You can learn it at university, but until you look the dread in the eye and you realize that something's about to go wrong that you participated in somehow, only then do you start to focus on, oh my goodness, like, what am I doing here? What did I do with somebody else's money on behalf of somebody else that's going to affect people? And how am I going to fix this before I lose my pants? So fear is a thing you need to get friendly with. I would encourage you. Look your moments of fear in the eye and go, I'm shitting myself. What is good about this? Like, because fear is an amazing coalesce, it's like a focusing force, and it's a driver of a lot of good decision making. It's also a driver of a lot of bad decision making. So next time you're afraid, get friendly with fear, look the fear in the eye and go, how are we going to work together? This feeling in my stomach, that's not lekker. Like, what are we going to do together? Because we're in a room. You're not leaving and I'm not leaving. Just wanted to share that. There's fear of the known. I want to get back to working despite borders. Fear can be a border. You can just be too afraid to get on a flight to Angola to meet a potential client. There's fear of the known. What do you know about Angola? You know what you've heard and read, but you haven't been there. So there's fear of what you think you know. So there's fear of the known. There's fear of the unknown. There are myths, okay? Myths, similar to irrational beliefs, but myths are normally carried by multiple people. There are myths of exclusion, and I'll say it as a white male, and I know a part of how people like me are seen, what the history of exclusion is in this country and what the history of privilege is in this country. But I fully believe that there are myths of exclusion because this country changed 30 years ago. And if you still feel fundamentally excluded, if you feel fundamentally excluded, I think you're not seeing some of the reality of what's happened. But again, there are no truths, only perspectives. There are myths of exclusion. There are myths on entitlement. There are myths of this is owed to me. There are myths about government as a savior. There are myths that because government should be driving change, therefore I'm on the change side, therefore government must feed me. No, government can't keep the basics together and it doesn't owe you a living as an architect. I have built multiple successful practices over the years, and we have never looked at government as a potential client. We have every now and then picked up government work, but I learned something from my ex-partners, and it's one of the big truths about South Africa. And I'll say truths, it's a perspective. We used to say, the sad thing about government is that government is the weakest partner in its own initiatives. I'll just leave that on the table and we can have a debate, we can have questions. These are my perspectives. And so there are myths of exclusion, myths on entitlement, myths about government. There's the if only. If only I had, if only I could, if only there was time, if only there was money, if only, oh yeah, no, it's not there, so I'm not going to do this. You got to break through if you want to break through. If you want to break through, check yourself, ask yourself, interrogate the conversations in your own head. We can work at the problem, work. I go to an enormous number of meetings. And in fact, that's why that's why I don't like government work. Because in government work, a lot of things get discussed. But the word work hardly ever appears. It's not in the minutes, it's not in the room. Work is a four-letter word. Okay? And part of our victim thing is that we feel we do all the work and the others don't. The engineers sponge off us, the clients extract stuff out of us. But work is a four-letter word. It's a dirty word. And when you go into meetings and you wonder why maybe projects don't happen, ask yourself whether all the people in the room have used the word work in a meeting, because the four-letter word. Who got up and said, I will do this work in the next week? No, there's lots of people who go, Mr. Architect, will you please do this work by next Tuesday? I'm like, what are you doing till next Tuesday? So I just wanted to share that. Then on a positive side, and I'm talking as a Joburg-based architect, work goes to the busy people. I hang a lot. I love architecture. I love architectural settings. I love the whole architectural thing, like drinks and gallery openings and all that stuff. And you go, how's work? Are you busy? And people go, no, I'm not busy. I promise you, work goes to the busy people. So when you're not busy, get out of bed to get all the work you can get, because maybe it's just a Joburg thing. Maybe other cities work differently. But just because you're not busy and you haven't got work doesn't mean that a client's going to go, hey, Johnny's sitting over there in the corner. He's not busy. Let's give him a project. No, people will go to Vusi, who sits next door to him, and Vusi is busy. So that's where the work goes. Work goes to the busy people. So talking about work despite borders, stop talking about the work you haven't got. Start pretending that you have work. Don't wail in a room full of consultants about how you haven't got work. Like, lie a little bit, because if you tell people that you're busy, they're going to go, hey, That person's busy. There must be a reason for that. So work goes to the busy people. So project being busy out there. Then you might find that work comes to you. I learned this long ago from Diru Kalian, who's my mentor. Ivor, Daniel, you would know who Diru is. Diru is still my mentor. And Diru said to me 30 years ago, he went, never go to a meeting anywhere and tell people that you're not busy. He goes, the worst thing you can do, the moment you say that, you'll have even less work next year. So work goes to the busy people. Work is a four-letter word. Work is love made visible. Let me go back to what we do. We all believe that our work is special and meaningful because we inject life force and passion into it. So between it being a four-letter word and it being love made visible, we can work at the problem of work and tie ourselves into a more nuanced and multi-key relationship, more keys on the piano in relation to this four-letter word. There are solutions to this thing. Now I want to talk for a moment about working outside of the country. You go, oh my God, I can't go to Senegal. They all speak French. Well, I'm not sure. I went to Senegal with my schoolboy French, but hey, everybody we met that mattered kind of in the project room as an architect with clients and financiers spoke perfect Oxford English. But you sit in Joburg in a boardroom and somebody goes, I have a project in Senegal. It's like, no, I don't speak the language. It's a waste of time. Can't go there. It's nonsense. Total nonsense. It's a voice in your head. It's what you think you wanted to hear so that you don't have to confront the fear of going, how am I going to do a project in Senegal? And I'm just saying, I mean, it was my choice to work outside of South Africa and to make the continent my journey. I'm not saying it's everybody's thing. There are 81 people in this room, might be a fraction of you who see that as a journey. I'm not saying it's the best journey. I'm not saying it's the most valid journey. But I decided to get out of bed and go, let me see what's really out there. Let me be curious. Is it really French when I get there? And it's not often. So the solutions are work at the languages, figure it out. I mean, good, you have online translation systems on your phone. Figure out these currencies, deal with of course, there's instability. Of course, there's wildly volatile currencies. Well, don't go, I can't go out there because I'm going to get paid in Naira. Figure out how you can turn Naira into Bitcoin and extract it out through an ATM in Johannesburg. Or whatever. I mean, you actually can't do that really because Bitcoin's illegal in Nigeria at the moment. But make a plan. I mean, I've spent nights of my life walking through Sandton City, extracting cash rands and fee payments of hundreds of thousands of rands out of travel wallet cards from Angolan clients because it was the only way they could pay me was buy Angolan travel wallet cards, which had a limit of 50,000 rands each, and they would put a guy on the plane, bring me 20 travel wallet cards, and I would have to walk through shopping malls at night to extract $1 million of fees in cash out of ATMs and then carry it in cash to our bank and deposit it. So there's always a solution. Don't go, you can't be paid, this doesn't work. So just wanted to share that. Sorry, let me just, there's something that popped up on my screen. Sorry. There are taxes. Get your hand around them. Figure it out. It's messy. You're going to make mistakes. There's all this like problems about working elsewhere. Languages, currency, taxes, all of that. There are solutions for. Speak to people. You don't need to go to lawyers who charge you 100,000 rand for a 20-page report. Just speak to people. Speak to colleagues. Speak to people in airports. Speak to people in hotel lobbies and make a plan. Sorry. So there's one currency, there's multi-currencies, there's distances between things. There are physical distances, geographic distances. Just when there was a great continental-wide flight system starting to get going, COVID came and flight routes collapsed and airlines disappeared. So we just starting to build flight routes again. So the distances. There are distances, physical distances. There's having to fly via Paris if you want to get to Tunisia. Shit, why is it like that? So maybe we'll get back there. There's risk. There's the risk perceptions. So again, there's real risk. There's real risk of, I don't know, like getting lost. There's risk of getting kidnapped in Nigeria. It happened to an architect friend of ours. He was set up by a client, lured to Nigeria and kidnapped at the airport and had his bank accounts cleaned out for 4 days while he was kept in a guest house in Nigeria and fed good food and had a 56-inch TV and was offered prostitutes for fun. Okay, architectural colleague of mine, slightly older than me. So shit happens, be careful. But there's risks, there's real risks, and then there's risk perceptions. Just because this happened to my friend doesn't mean this has to happen to me, doesn't mean all of us or me can't work in Nigeria. Just sharing that. There are conflicts, there are internal conflicts, there are conflicts within companies, there are conflicts within partnerships, there are conflicts of interest, there are vested interests, there are fickle rooms you get into. There are cultural gaps, there are cultural voids, there are cultural overlaps, there are these different cultures, different working cultures, different talking cultures. I've learned to every single person I meet. I mean, of course, I also apply this now in South Africa. Every business meeting I go into, every person I meet, and every hand I shake, I go, "How are you? How is your family?" We one of the biggest, richest advantages we have coming from South Africa into this globalized world where we are part of this fast growing economic and political power block called BRICS is that what we share with many of the cultures, not all of them, but we share it, for example, with the Indian culture, which just happens to be 1.4 billion people who are doing something right. We South Africans come from a context rich culture. Somebody shared this with me 3 months ago. I was telling a story about how we meet people and how we talk things through in Tanzania in a project setting with a whole lot of Indian foremen, kind of from India, from Gujarat. And somebody said to me, "Yeah, but these meetings work the way they do because you and those Indian people all come from a context-rich culture. A context-rich culture is where we live. We don't look at it that way." I would encourage you to do some research. So, in the American way, and I have American clients in my data center business, and it's hard, and I must say I don't necessarily enjoy it. It's like, "How you doing? Is the work finished? Like, are you charging me too much?" And there's no empathy. Again, nothing about people. It's like the Trump, like, "You're fired." It's a hard, hard, hard way. And there's a reason why the US is at the top of the current global economic pile, is because it's grown on a ruthless exploitation of people and settings and a rapacious way of looking at the world as a place for super extraction. And it's not over. I think we're only just getting there with AI. But we are joined in the world in the way we grew up, whether we white or black or Indian or colored or whatever we are in South Africa, Chinese, Taiwanese. We have grown up in what is already a context-rich environment. A context-rich environment is where you will give the car guard something. A context-rich environment is where you do chat to the guy at the filling station who fills up your car. Like, my German friends come to South Africa and they visit us, and the first thing they want to do when they get back from the airport is go and fill up the car with us. Why? Because they find it magical that there's a person who greets you, asks you how you are, asks you whether they can check your oil and water, asks you whether they can wash your windscreen, and will talk to you for 3 or 5 minutes about the weather, about the work, about how busy it is. You can have a whole conversation while you're filling your car with a complete stranger. Isn't that amazing? So, like, we are blessed to work in a context-rich environment. So I've learned to ask everybody in every meeting how their family is, and it's changed the way my work feels. Every guy, every engineer, every consultant, every person, every client, every guy, just go, how are you doing? How is your family? And then respond. If most people say my family's fine, you go, is your family really fine? Or they go, oh no, my grandmother was sick. You go, tell me about her. Where does she live? I've learned this also from Brazilians. We had an office in Brazil for 6 years. And it's those small things. It's like touching somebody's hand. It's like how you shake their hand. Do you make eye contact? Make eye contact, shake people's hands, look into their eyes, and ask them how their family is. It will change your working life. It worked for me. Just wanted to put it on the table. Let me move on. There's laws and regulations. Get your head around them. Don't make it a big story. Just jump across that border. As the Germans say, there's a wonderful German saying. It goes, du musst über deinen eigenen Schatten springen. You need to be able to jump across or over your own shadow. It's like a fascinating little picture. It's like imagine you standing and you're trying to get rid of your shadow. Your shadow is attached to you. But there's this German saying, you must just when you get into a difficult situation and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. German people will say, oh, come on, just spring über deinen Schatten. Like, let go of it, man. Just stop going on about this thing. So, yeah, just jump over your own shadow. Just get over the laws and regulations, man. Buildings are made of concrete, bricks, steel, mortar, mud, whatever. Building regulations are just about the same all over the world, with a few exceptions. And that's it. Geopolitics, a little bit more difficult. Go and understand the world. Go and interrogate the world. Go and try and understand how it works. And then we have our South Africanness. I want to dwell on that for a moment. I said earlier that we are hearing the creaking sounds or the clanking sounds of our continent, our country attaching to the continent. We as a tribe, as a business tribe, really suffer from a superiority complex. We have a continent that looks at us. And I mean, I've gone on LinkedIn and it was one of my most popular posts ever. Not like it was just interesting, where I said we should change the name of the country to Azania. Not like I'm a Pan-Africanist, but this thing that we are or for me, I'm trying to connect to this continent of opportunity. And I come from this country that defines itself by its geographical position. There's Africa and then there's South Africa. So I get asked to talk at webinars and conferences on work in Africa. I've always worked in Africa. Well, we all work in Africa. All of you work in Africa. And that's why I didn't want to talk about work in Africa. In fact, the KZNIA is the first regional institute that knows me and didn't ask me to talk about work in Africa. Thanks a lot. Most other conferences and webinars have been, oh, Henning, you do this work in Africa. Talk to us about Africa. Fuck, everybody in this room is working in Africa. But we have this thing about the south of it and like how that's so different and how we have the most amazing economy and it's between us and Nigeria and all that nonsense. So I just wanted to bring that up. Be careful of that South Africanness. And that's it, not knowing. So this was a lot. I want to take a gap for one moment. It's been 45 minutes of the 1 hour and 30 minutes. There's also got to be time for questions. Does somebody want to ask something now? Otherwise, I'm going to carry on. Anybody? No.
Still
Okay.
enjoyable, Henning. Yeah, you can carry on.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Good. Give me one moment. Bit of
Hi,
a
sorry, Henning. I would like to ask something.
yes.
Hi, sorry,
Yes.
Tevin here.
Yes.
Henning, I'm also the question I wanted to ask. So, a partner and I started a company about a year ago.
Yeah.
How do you address the competitiveness of other architectural firms who are charging a fraction of the price of what even SAICAP are guiding us to charge? The competition is creating a position where one has to rearrange their whole architectural fee and guidelines and how they are planning purely
Yeah.
because the client is coming to say, oh, but Henning is charging a fraction of your price. Why is it that you are charging so much?
Good luck. I mean, this is a complicated discussion. Thanks for the question. I think, look, we have created a reality. We, the industry, have created a reality from which we now suffer. We have collectively made the bed that we sleep in. And this is maybe a discussion that the nature of the discussion around this needs to change. I'm not saying there's something wrong with your question. It's at the core of it. The nature of the discussion needs to be, how did we end up here? How did we sell ourselves down the river? It's the normal, like, why don't lawyers do this? They don't because they're
Yeah.
not stupid. Why were we so stupid? What is the desperation that's behind it? But much more importantly is, what is the value proposition? What was the value proposition of the gazetted fees? I mean, there's 85 people now in this room. How many can put up their hand and properly say to themselves and to me or to you that they properly understand the origin of the gazetted fee scales, why they are structured the way they are, why they have the packages they are, why there's these figures in the table, and why on earth clients should pay on that basis? Who can actually construct this value argument?
Mm,
I'm like, can you? I can't. And I really can't. I never have, but I learned it at varsity. And so then I ran a practice, and then did certain discounts. And then every project room I walked into for 25 years had this, like, please give me your discount off the tariff. It's like, walk into a motor dealership and go, I want a Volkswagen, please give me your discount off the list price. But here we are. I believe that the problem is that we don't have a value argument because the
mm,
gazetted fee scales are bullshit. They originated somewhere in Britain in the late 19th century.
yeah.
And most other things that originated in Britain in the late 19th century are by now in the waste bin or discredited. So I don't know if that helps you, but I think it's nonsense. Like
I think yes. I think in
yeah.
a nutshell, you have managed to answer the question. I think it's just a circumstance of what we have created.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we South Africans as a collective went into Dubai like 20 years ago and effed up a completely good fee and services market by coming from South Africa 20 years ago. And we in Paragon years ago went to Dubai trying to get work. And I was trying to meet clients at property conferences like Cityscape. But what I met were architects, American, uh, British, French, German architects who went, oh, you're from South Africa. I want to talk to you. You and your colleagues came into this market and messed up a properly good game. We were all earning good money. We were doing good work. We could build good businesses. And then you South Africans came in here and you messed up the market. You came in and you started doing work on risk. You started giving it all away for free. And now we are suffering the consequences because our clients are telling us, I don't need to work with you. I can go to South Africans. They're down the road and they're cheaper. So we have done this to ourselves. And that's the honest discussion we need to have. And the other one is go back to the value argument. AI is going to change this anyway. My fear, and I'll go into this for 2 minutes. My honest fear, and maybe it doesn't worry me because I'm 57 and I'll work for another 20 years, maybe, and maybe these things won't wash over me, or maybe I'll work for 10 years or whatever. But I just started architecture again after doing it for 25 years because I couldn't leave it. But what really worries me with AI, and there's so much about how AI is going to wipe us all out, is that in South Africa, I'll say broadly, larger commercial practices and even smaller practices have learned to do work for free, what we call risk work, which is the actual IP. And we put that on the table for free. We work client relationships hard. We take certain uninformed and certain informed decisions about why we want to invest. Then, while we're investing in the IP for free, we negotiate our fees down because we're in this room where nobody understands the value argument. And then we do all of that in the chase of one day earning our fees when the project finally goes ahead, when it's already in construction, when like in month 6 of construction is when the bank finance kicks in, or the bank finance kicks in. We do all of this. We give the IP away. We negotiate fees and avoid because there's no value argument, and then we do that in pursuit of the grunt work because we get paid afterwards for the IP we put on the table to win the job. Let's call it that. And then we get paid for the stuff we've already given away for free in the so-called grunt work, the door schedules, the window schedules, the GA layouts, the dimension brickwork drawings. Now AI is going to automate that stuff. So the question is, even 5 years from now, and clients aren't stupid. Clients are watching this space about, hey, this just takes a click of a button or it just takes a series of prompts. Okay, prompt engineering, put a guy in the corner, automate the AI, bit of machine learning. The question is, what are we going to get paid for? What are we going to get paid for? And we as an industry rather quickly reverse ourselves out of the hole we put ourselves into. I don't have the solutions, but I have a dreadful fear of the fact that the last value measure, the getting paid the fees one day out of the boring shit, is going to disappear and we're going to be left with nothing. I wanted to share that in a rather large room.
Thank
And
you very
maybe
much,
it's
Henning.
just my irrational fear. Thanks for the question. Okay. Anybody else at this stage? No. Okay, good. So what have I really learned? I've given you some perspectives, but maybe what have I really learned is the following. Patience. I used to be an impatient guy. It's just the way I was born. But my goodness, work outside of South Africa has taught me patience. Like economies just run at another pace. I don't know what it is. You can call it African time. You can call it what you want. But and then I have this particular disability, which is being a guy from Joburg. I mean, we we drive the fear of God into people in Cape Town because we're so hectic. Joburg is hectic. I'll just say it. I quite like it, but I don't think we Joburgers realize how fast and how hard we drive things. I'm not even saying that's a great thing, but I think it was a huge jump for me. What have I really learned is to be a guy from Joburg and go into, like back in 2002, into post-conflict societies like Angola, still emerging from civil war, hadn't even finished their 27-year civil war. And I had to dial down my impatience a lot. What have I learned? This is a picture from Namibia. I love this best road sign. um, I have learned to reach deep into my little box of values, wherever they come from. Combination of like a whole lot of things. I'm no longer religious, but somewhere I had a good religious Lutheran upbringing. So somewhere that's in my DNA, whether I like it or not, in my mother's milk. But what have I learned? I've had to reach into my reach out for my moral compass and go, what conversation am I in? Who are the stakeholders? Who's pulling the strings? What am I doing here? Do I want to be in this room? In various settings. I haven't got the time now to go into examples, but I think most of you will know this situation where you go, should I be here? Do I want to entertain this person? Um, and then what have I really learned? Because I love this. This is like from a building site in Randburg many years ago, building houses. It's this Afrikaans sticker. It goes, we work according to time, quality, and price. You can choose any two. And so this big love triangle of construction, you can go online. This sort of time, quality, price thing is there's a whole industry built on it with project management and lots of Harvard School business reports, but it's simple. Time, quality, and price are intricately linked, and our job as architects is to make clients believe that they can get that they can get all three: the short time, the great quality for the low price. And life just isn't like that. Not in architecture, not in law, not in anything, not when you like just doesn't happen. Okay, so this great love triangle of construction, I'll call it, because we're in construction and architecture, is everywhere. So if you've mastered this in Joburg, or in South Africa, there's no reason why you can't take this to Mozambique, why you can't take it to Ethiopia, why you can't take it to the Central African Republic. Walk into the room, go, do we have a lot of time? Then we can get great quality at a low price. Do we have a lot of money? Then we can do this fast at a high quality. Do we want low quality? Then we can do it fast and cheap. So what are we doing here? Try and understand that. Get a picture, take a snapshot, guide your work according to it. Brief your staff. Go, this client is about fast. So what's going to happen? Do they have the money to do good quality fast? No, they don't have the money. Okay, so the quality is going to suffer. And then we all know what we're doing. Then we don't have to pretend. But this great love triangle of construction is universal. And just fall back on what you already know. We know once you've practiced for a while, you know this instinctively. Just bring it back, visualize it in a meeting and go, can we just cut through this? Time, price, quality. What do you want, Mr. QS? What do you want, Mr. Client? What do you want, Mrs. Mechanical Engineer? Whatever. It cuts through so much nonsense and bullshit. I've used this picture over the years. This is Dinkum Real from like Angola. Again, we walked out with these banknotes inside of our shoes through an airport where you can only do $5,000 as an Angolan, only $2,000 as a foreigner. We carried $90,000 out after a meeting. The bottle of whiskey comes from us having done a good day, and the shawarmas are from the shawarmas and chicken are from the Lebanese shop across the road from our client's guest house. So the question is not what you get paid. The question is how and when. And this is the thing. Doesn't matter where you work. You can theorize about fees. You can negotiate what you want. You can throw schedules of tariffs around. The question is not what you get paid, what you can in theory be paid. The question is how are they going to pay you and when is the money coming? That's all you have to know. The rest is wah-wah, waste of time. So, what have I really learned? The Second Cold War, the recolonization of Africa is real. It's very real. Like 100 years from now, they're going to write about this like they now write about the previous colonial history. And that doesn't make China bad. It doesn't make Chinese people bad. It doesn't make Chinese contractors bad. But look at this thing. In fact, it's China and India in different ways, but China is way ahead. There is a new colonial master. Projects across the continent that you may or may not get involved in are financed by off-balance sheet transactions, and projects get financed by concessions on minerals. I'm not telling you something new. If you want to know where the real action is, everybody in this room, 90 of us by now, can probably find work in the DRC. The DRC is now erupting. It is about to be exploited like it's never been exploited before. It was exploited by the French, and it was always exploited by the Americans. The CIA paid Mobutu Sese Seko during his lifetime $90 billion in graft money to keep him on their side and be their henchman. Okay. To his person, to his family, $90 billion. This is documented. And that was only the Americans. The race for the DRC is so on that the Germans and the Chinese have built a joint rail corridor from Lobito in Angola through Angola into Kinshasa, and it's going deeper. It's already finished. It's already running. Where else in the world do the Germans and the Chinese cooperate on anything other than building Mercedes-Benz in Shanghai? But think about it. We're working in Tanzania at the moment. Where does that come from? So China has one corridor into the DRC, and Indian and Arab and Chinese money is building another corridor through Tanzania, past Dodoma, the new capital, into the northeastern part of the DRC. The Lord Resistance Army country, the place where South African soldiers died this year, okay, the highways and the rails for the proper rape of the DRC are already there, and we are living in this now. And there will be so much work to do in the DRC for those who are prepared to go through the borders in their head and go there. You don't have to. I'm just sharing it. It's under our nose. We can participate in it or not. Let me carry on. I dwelt on this already, the South African thing. I'm questioning myself, not maybe all of you, about for how much longer we are going to have this distanced engagement. Africa and us, South Africa versus the rest. This is a bit of a repeat and I want to go on, but for how much longer are we going to look at ourselves as separate from the continent that we were born on? I'm tired of it, and that's why both my businesses have the word Africa in their name. People have said to me, don't start a data center business and call it Datascape Architects Africa. Nobody buys anything from Africa. And I went, fuck that. Like, I need to have that in the name of my businesses. It might be cheesy, but I want to remind myself every time I write my company name in a proposal document and every time I look at my logo, I want to remind myself that I've chosen for the rest of my professional life to connect my business life force to this continent. So that's me. Just wanted to share that. South Africa is in fact an African anti-model. Speaking to people in KZN, I had a fascinating time during the KZN riots. When was it? 2022. And I had probably 80 people from the African continent phoning me, WhatsApping me, messaging me, asking me if I was okay, asking me if they could help me, and asking me if my families were okay in these riots. And that's like probably 15 of them wrote me long personal messages about how much it hurt them that our country, which had been a leading light for the continent, that they were watching with the hope of success. They went, Henning, what on earth happened to you guys and your tribe that you can fall so far so fast? Like, please tell us this is not happening. Please tell us your post-colonial story was different. Please tell us your liberation movement didn't go bad on you. But there we are. And so we are an anti-model in the way we build cities. We are an anti-model in the way we design shopping centers. Like the first three South African design shopping centers in Nigeria worked like a bomb. By the fourth and the fifth and the sixth, it wasn't working anymore. So many clients come to us, so whether it's in Paragon before, in my businesses now, they come to Joburg, they stay in Sandton, they go for dinner at Melrose Arch, and they want a Melrose Arch. And we go, guys, you can't build a super basement like that. You can't fake this shit. So anyway, like South Africa is an anti-model in so many ways, and we need to be aware of that. And it's part of our responsibility to inform ourselves properly, understand our country fully, and take responsibility for what we're creating for the continent. We are under pressure and people are observing us. I think we have no idea. Like for years, I mean, I've now traveled for business for, I don't know, 20 years. Lots, probably between a third and half of my life. And the conversations about South Africa were always great. The classic elevator talk. Hey, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Joburg. Where are you from? I'm from Chicago. Hey, I've always wanted to visit Joburg. I've been to Cape Town. It was great until about 5 to 6 years ago. Now, when I say I'm from Joburg or from South Africa, people go, yo, you guys have real problems. No, I don't want to go there. I promise you, this is not from Americans. This is from Black African people that I meet from all over the continent in random social settings. They go, South Africa, no, we don't want to go there. Your crime, your thing, your xenophobia, your stuff, your electricity. I want to, what I want to share with you is, please, can we be aware how much we are being observed? We are being observed. We are under intense scrutiny. And we are such continental dickheads that we're not aware of that. I'll just say it. Excuse my language. So I wanted to share that. I've learned that. So I said, what have I really learned? I think we are currently an anti-model for this continent, and it's sad. It makes me really sad. Then, speaking to architects, we learn in architecture school to have more than one option. It's like, hey, have 5 ideas. Man, why don't we do it like this? Why don't we do it like that? Why don't we do it like that? I can even do options in my office, but I've learned in an African project setting never to bring options to the table. I'll bring them on my laptop or have them in paper in a side drawer in case I need to show them. But I've been in so many meetings on the continent where we've gone in and gone, here's 3 ways of doing your site plan. And people kind of give me, maybe not you, this glazed look. And then when the meeting's over, they go, Henning, we just want to understand one thing. Like, we called you all the way from Joburg to come to Senegal because we believe that you know stuff and you have experience. Why are you bringing us 3 options? Why are you hesitating? Why are you questioning yourself? Like, don't you know what you want? Don't you know what we should do? Because we asked you to come to tell us about our project and how you would do it or how your clients would do it. Why are you showing us options? This is not cool. You're making us nervous. It took me quite a few years to go, I get it. My value is in directed effort. I need to figure out how I bring the options into the conversation later or over a whiskey and fajita in the evening. I can't go into a boardroom setting and put options on the table. People get nervous like hell because they want me to know because I'm South African. Just wanted to share that. Family businesses are all powerful. We as South Africans don't properly understand family businesses. We understand um, uh, listed property funds listed on the JSE. We understand growth points and redefines and whatever they're all called and REITs. Family business is everything. Generational concessional relationships build super powerful US dollar billion rich family businesses in every country, and those are the clients. And you can meet them through people. And in our generation, I'm at 57, I'm getting a bit too old to hang with the young children, but the children of the revolution and the children of these family businesses who are 29 to 40 are starting to make the decisions, and they are worth billions of dollars. And if you can win their trust, they need so much help. They need so much advice, and there's such a rich world of people out there. There's phenomenal wealth on this continent. You can look it up, you can research these businesses, you can find them. Family businesses are everything, and that's a complex room and it's difficult to do. If you have multi-stakeholder skills as an architect, you can find super wealthy, cash rich clients. We did work in Gabon for, in this case, a French family who went to Gabon in the 1960s and built a business that supplies 80% of all food eaten in the Gabon, which was Shell's richest, most lucrative oil market in the world, Gabonese oil. So Gabon is probably 40% of the population has government jobs and sits around doing nothing because the Gabonese government used to have the thing taped up about actually distributing the oil wealth of their country to the population through a civil service that just absorbed more and more people. But here we were working for a business that sells 80% of all food. None of it is grown in Gabon. All of it is flown in and shipped in from across the world, frozen food supermarkets, for 80% of a population with not one credit card machine. Not one credit card machine. Everything, every day, paid in cash. There is nothing like it in South Africa. Okay, we have no idea how cash economies work, but it's coming. We're not a cash economy yet, but it's coming. Speak to your Zimbabwean friends. A cash economy country is just up the road. We better get friendly with this. Just sharing that. Tribal allegiance is super important. I still get it wrong. I can go to Kenya. I still don't know how I'm getting a Kikuyu and a Maasai into a room, and they will even join me in a meeting, but they'll never do business with each other because it's just not what happens. But they'll entertain me because I'm kind of cute and I don't know, I can't tell from their surnames which tribe they're from. So I honestly believe that they're going to do a project together. And in exasperation, after multiple project meetings, I'll go, guys, why is this project not happening? Why are you not cooperating? And one of them will go, Henning, like, I know I can make $10 million here, but do you really think, like me from this family, is going to feed that guy from that family, is from another tribe? Are you insane? Like, do you know nothing? How many years have you been coming to Kenya? And Kenya is strong. This tribal allegiances thing is strong. And people will actually shoot themselves in the foot and rather jump off a cliff than to feed a person from another tribe. Often, not always. But this is a strong thing, and I don't fully understand it. But it's out there, and we as South Africans don't understand this thing in business. South Africa, I'll just say it, is actually the big easy. We work hard, it's a tough environment, but in relation to our continent, we are the big easy. Then I learned this from Greg Pearson, who many of you might know, who's now head of Grit Property Fund. And I traveled with him many times, and I met him in every airport and every hotel lobby for years in his pursuit of building what is now Grit Property Fund. But he used to fly around as a QS for ACOM, and he's one of my mentors in business. Diru Kalian is my mentor in business and architecture. I said to Greg many years ago, I said, Greg, like you're a hustler, I'm a hustler. I love you. I love your work. Like, how do you do this? He went, and this goes back to what I said earlier about the moral compass. Greg said, listen to me, Henning, it's simple. You like, if you want to be successful in business and if you want to empower yourself with your own decisions, don't walk away from a room because it feels or sounds wrong. He said to me, be prepared to have every conversation. Be prepared to finish every conversation and never flinch. Never flinch. Don't pull a face. Don't go, we don't work like that. You can say that later. Never say it into a person's face. First of all, it's disrespectful. Secondly, you might be wrong because you don't understand the context. And thirdly, you won't finish. I know that you can fit 300,000 US dollars into an A3 paper envelope, a brown paper envelope, without raising suspicion on a video footage of a shopping center. An Angolan general told me this in a coffee shop in Eastgate in Johannesburg when he asked me for a $300,000 bribe for just for the pleasure of introducing my potential client, Protea Hotels, many years back to him, so that he can introduce them to a landowner, which will involve another bribe. If I had got up and said, Sir, I do not entertain these conversations. My clients don't pay bribes. I don't. I would never have learned that $300,000 fit very easily into a brown paper envelope. Might be a piece of information I never use, but I can share it with you this morning. So never flinch. Finish every conversation and be prepared to have it. Tip your taxi driver. Taxi drivers, Uber drivers are the best source of information. If you really want to invest in a country, taxi drivers can give you hundreds of thousands of consulting dollars worth of information. You ask any taxi driver anywhere in the world how their life is and how the economy is, and they will tell you everything about the cost of living, about the schooling system, about taxes, about government, about policy. They will tell you everything that you would have to go to KPMG or Ernst and Young to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for. You can get for free from taxi drivers. Take it from me. Tip them generously. Quickly, I've got to speed up. We're running out of time, and there's got to be time for questions. There's a fundamental difference in the perception between the so-called East, the so-called West and Africa. In America, businesses wield political power. In Africa, politicians wield business power. Just take it. It's a soundbite. I don't want to carry on about the corruption. I have really worked in some pretty dodgy places. I have never had to pay money. I would say in this collegial setting that every one of my clients outside of the country needs to pay to get their building plans approved in one way or the other. Just the way it is. Might not be in South Africa yet. I want to share the story quickly. I went to I was in Nairobi a few years ago for project work, and somehow some architectural colleagues knew that I was in town and there was a housing conference. I wasn't even on the speaker panel, but I got a call from an architectural colleague in Kenya saying, Henning, you're in town. There's this conference, the Minister of Housing, the Cabinet Secretary of Housing, which is basically our sort of Minister of Housing, wants to see you. They've heard that there's these architects in town from across the continent. Don't you want to come to a meeting at the Cabinet Secretary's house? It's at the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Housing. I said, sure, I'll come. Like a bit weird of a call, but yeah, I'll come for tea with the Cabinet Secretary. We made a time. I called my driver. I finished my project meeting. My driver said, where are we going, Henning? I said, well, we're going to the Cabinet Secretary for Housing. Do you know where it is? He went, yeah. So we started driving into Nairobi. And after a while, my driver said, so which entrance do you want to be dropped off at the ministry? I went, I don't know. How many entrances are there? I've never been to the building. Where do you think I should go? Which entrance? Do you think you should drop me off? I'm going to have to find my way. He said, I think you should go to entrance 3 because that's where the ATM is. I said to him, but I don't need cash. I just want to find the Cabinet Secretary of Housing. He said, Henning, you're going to see the Cabinet Secretary of Housing. The ATM is at entrance 3 of the ministry building. Nobody doesn't go and see the Cabinet Secretary with cash. So, I want to play this quickly. This is from the Nairobi youth riots last year. Now, let's talk about corruption actually, and I am running out of time soon. This is a client of ours at Tatu City, a vice president of Rendeva, who outed corrupt influencers around their project on television during these youth riots, stuck out their hand. Because fighting corruption, if we want to go there, we go fight corruption. Sound like a DA guy. Now, we got to do this across the board. So I just want to share this with you because this should be happening in South Africa, actually, and we need brave people.
Today, I would like to say that unfortunately, that success of Tattoo City has attracted opportunistic politicians in Kenya.
Who has the balls to do this in South Africa? Which business? Which client business?
Today, we are blowing the whistle. We are blowing the whistle on extortion, an extortion attempt by the governor of Kiambu County, it's Governor Kamani Wamatangi, and his aide, Salome Wainaina, who is the CEC member for Lands, Housing, Physical Planning, Municipal Administration, and Urban Development. Today, we strongly condemn Salome Wainaina and Governor Wamatangi for attempting to extort foreign direct investors, international investors in Kenya from New Zealand, the United States, United Kingdom, and Norway. These individuals here have held up for more than a year and a half the approval of Tattoo City's new master plan. All the while, they try to seize 40 acres of land from Tattoo City, including land for Governor Wamatangi's residence. The value of the land they are trying to take from Tattoo City is 4.3 billion shillings. That's about 33 million US dollars.
So I'll leave you with that. We need brave people and we need to be brave ourselves and speak truth when it matters. I need to speed up. The post-colonial landscapes are like on the continent, the original colonializing country has left deep imprints on how business functions and how architecture and planning functions. Wherever the British went, they left behind great British title deeds and surveyor general diagrams. Where the Portuguese went, there's none of that. Where the French went, there are fractions of that. I can't go into the detail now, but the kind of colonial so-called master that countries had makes a huge difference to how planning and approvals and documentation and licenses work, and it's good to understand. The West, the East, the North, the South, and the dark middle function fundamentally differently. So just because you learn to do something useful, or I learned to do something useful in Kenya, doesn't mean it works in Ghana. Not at all. Don't jump to conclusions. And business as usual is entirely not the point. This goes back to our thing as South Africans. We bring the light. It's almost like a colonializing missionary position. Like, we coming from South Africa, we know how to do a Melrose Arch. We know how to do a shopping center. Like, we know how you guys should finance. We know how you guys should build. We know how you guys should structure fees. Business as usual, business as usual. We are coming with our train. Business as usual is entirely not the point. My job is to understand how business functions, understand how people make decisions in a post-conflict country like Angola. If you had 27 years of active physical fighting in your country with the invading armies on the doorstep of your capital multiple times, you make a certain kind of decision. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you're an Angolan who has learned from his or her father, how to survive in a conflict setting where life is short and everything is uncertain. So I love this. Our job is not to export our whole business model. Our job is to put ourselves on a plane if that's what it takes, bring curiosity and empathy and engage fully. That's what I want to share with you. Now, to the organizers, there's 10 minutes left. I don't have to show my work. We can go to questions. I said
Yeah,
this.
no, you can go ahead, Henning. We're still good.
Okay, I'm going to make this super quick. This is just where we are. This is work we did in the last, let's say, 2 years ago, large master plan in Ghana. We'll probably never go into a piece of construction, but we took a project by David Adjaye that was dreadful, and let's say David Adjaye had charged millions of pounds to our client for a project that was totally a total misfit for Ghana. I can say we made parts of it better, but we basically were paid a couple of R100,000 to change this master plan over 4 months, and we maybe did a better job. But these are the kind of engagements that I've been busy with since I started these new businesses. So yeah, I don't want to explain it. It's just we climb in and we try hard and we have a lot of fun, and like the projects are crazy. And this project included a freedom flame that was supposed to celebrate the values of Kwame Nkrumah. So we started getting the client to like this idea of building an absolutely minimal tall spire, but they wanted a $10 million budget for the Kwame Nkrumah Tower. And I said, no, it should be made of nothing, because Kwame Nkrumah started the first liberation struggle in Ghana, in the Gold Coast, out of nothing, on a kitchen table with no budget. So anyway, we try and I try and enjoy the conversations that the projects bring up. This is the outcome. That was the bad version of the Freedom Needle or whatever. It will never get built, but I work with a team of half employees, half permanent subcontractors, ex-employees, and architectural micro businesses that can give me 3 days of their time over 4 to 6 months to help me with certain packages. And that's how I've structured my business. I've always wanted to do an airport. How do you get your first airport? You have to have done an airport. So here I am in Tanzania, and I meet a client who also hasn't done an airport. I haven't done an airport, and we're both going to do our first airport. So I'm finally doing airport work. When I was in varsity, I said, somebody asked, Henning, what do you want to do in your life as an architect? I want to do a sports stadium, I want to do an airport, and I want to do a train station. And it's kind of stuck with me. And weirdly enough, we got involved in the Cape Town Stadium, and the Belo Horizonte Stadium in Brazil. So I've done stadiums. Now I'm doing airports. I'm just looking for a train station. So if there are any assistants in the room, please phone me for a JV. So anyway, here we are. This is the 1940s terminal, like a Swahili Art Deco building at the top middle of the screen. And we're adding an extensive series of courtyards to turn this into a presidential and VIP terminal in Zanzibar. Super billionaires of the world, including Bill Gates, own islands around Zanzibar, and there's no place to park their jet. Oh my goodness. So we're building a jet terminal around this historical building. The build project is almost finished. These are the renderings. Here are some pictures from the construction. Has these amazing trees. And yeah, this is the departure wing. These vaults are actually built. I don't have a picture of them here. This is the presidential courtyard. Here it is. So we busy. These are the interiors. We try and do architecture and interiors as a seamless service. Nobody understands the definition. Well, not nobody, but most clients don't want to know about the difference between architecture and interior design. So we try and erase it. This is a current project that's in construction. Just quickly flip through a video. So we're already in our second project, and we just got briefed for another 3 terminal buildings in Zanzibar. So I've never done an airport, and neither has my client.
Zanzibar is the paradise island. Zanzibar, UNESCO will have safety.
Bit of Art Deco. This is where your driver will wait for you under a big tree, a mango tree, sorry.
Zanzibar, friendly people, love and time, who you got, I love you, Zanzibar.
Oopsie, let me move on. Sorry. So this is it. So we work for a contractor that employs 4,500 people in Tanzania. They are properly like 1970s South Africa. Marion Roberts was probably like this. They run 8 warehouses, 8 factories in Tanzania. This contractor makes just about everything themselves. They own their own quarries. They mine their own sand. They crush their own gravel for their own concrete. They don't make their own cement. They don't make their own ceiling tiles. They don't make ceiling grids. They don't make carpets. They make their own blocks. They precast everything. They build these lights like street lights. They will weld them themselves. They fix their own trucks. They have their own panel beating businesses. They make from scratch their own concrete mixers. They have an Indian 4th generation blacksmith who makes their hand tools because they're tired of Chinese shovels and rakes and picks that break. They forge their own pickaxes. They make their own shovels. They repair their own trucks. They make their own blocks. They build their own curbs. They make drainage pipes. They build prefabricated reservoirs. They make their own doors. They dry their own timber. They can lathe anything. They can cut anything. They make GRC facade panels for just about anything. They build their own steelwork. They have an in-house engineering team, an in-house architecture team. We just augment their work. There are no companies like this in South Africa, and there's a reason for that. We used to have them and they're gone. I don't think they'll come back. But these companies exist in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Senegal, in Tanzania, in Kenya, maybe not quite like that. But here we are. This is from last week on site. Those facade panels on the right are GRC panels. We designed these things, we made them, we workshopped them. thin 15mm GRC panels stuck onto a steel frame. So we make these things up from scratch. We draw it. I work with, there's no QS in the room. There are no project managers in the room. And we workshop. Like we design entire buildings by WhatsApp with our clients. And an approval is a thumbs up emoji in like the brown, the medium brown, because the client's Indian. So we're having a great time. We're having a lot of fun. I'm a little bit of a retro 50s, 70s kid. So that's me. And so we're in it to win it. This is from last week on site. Everything works through mock-ups. We do mock-ups of everything, and the clients go through the mock-up list until they know what we want and what they can build. So this is all Tanzanian made. This is also near the airport, a business center that's kind of finished in a few months. This is stuff in Zambia. This is in construction for the EU Commission. This is other stuff in Zambia. This is a building in Dar es Salaam, which just has gone into construction now. We are sort of, in 2 years, this will be the view from one of the terraces in the middle of the building. This was the site a month ago. So I've got 170,000 square meters of buildings in construction, and I'm in a happy space. And I must end, and all we are asked to do is practice. So for me, I think I'm in it to win it still, and I don't know nearly everything, but thanks for your time. And I need to end. Empathy. Oh, yes, I have to share this. Just a clip from a site and pieces of wisdom you get from people. And then my talk is finished. This was a few years ago on a hotel site that I did in Paragon in Eswatini, Kingdom of Eswatini.
That date of
It's
a
about
building
humility.
site, your social standards, everything drops. You are equal because you can't get this building up without the lowest laborer digging that trench over there. When you leave the building site, then you can go to your respective status, eating prawns instead of sheep heads and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a togetherness. Otherwise, you fall flat every time.
We're gonna drink lots when we done.
Where did you learn this? I mean, you're a philosophical man, but how did you get to this insight?
No, it's there all the time. People don't see it. It's there all the time. And then feet on the ground. Always feet on the ground. No, it's really. You see what happens? If two people are playing chess, they're so engrossed in the game that the guy standing on the outside can see 3 moves ahead, and it applies to everybody. You can have what knowledge and what degrees and all that sort of thing. It's how you apply what you know that's important. Into that gate.
So when I say I get out of bed to be able to tell stories, I obviously also meet people who can impart profound knowledge. And with that, I want to end. Thanks for the organizers. I'm happy to do questions. I know the time's up, but thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Henning. I think we will still take comments and questions if there are. What was quite refreshing on your talk, Henning, is generally we get a particular perspective from fellow professionals, architects, and I think your talk was actually quite broad, incorporating quite a lot of stuff, geopolitics, a bit of history, business, which are very, very important. And I think for an architect operating in South Africa and anywhere else, it's very important to be well-rounded and balancing our knowledge so that we are aware of the environment in which we are practicing in. So thank you so much for that. Suzanne?
Hi, Henning. I just wanted to ask you, do you have any tips in terms of tax, working across borders? I've done international voluntary work and loved it, but I have found it a bit of a challenge to try and get, say, for example, if I'm working with a British company, they're very reluctant to work with you if you're not based there due to tax reasons. I just wondered how you structure.
If you're not based in Britain in this case.
Yeah.
Look, it's difficult. We've also been asked to set up companies in Britain. I think Britain is apparently quite amenable. Like you can be an outsider and trade through Britain. I don't know what happens on the reverse side. We almost registered a company with a bank account in Britain for the same reason, for some work in Uganda. I don't know the details, but there's nothing underhanded about it. You just end up in a different tax environment. Of course, a lot of professionals, including some of the bigger PMs and QSs, trade through Mauritius. I think the next time you're asked, maybe go, hey, I hear you, but maybe you don't want to send your money to South Africa. Can we agree on a location that's not you and not me? I don't know if that helps. And again, Mauritius is not a cheap place to host your business. You have to trade at a certain volume to pay for all the compliance. So
It was
generally,
more that you're working across so many borders. So how do you
yeah.
manage tax across so many borders? But maybe
Look, I mean, like I'm building a business and I need cash to grow it. So I run my South African bank account and people pay us in all sorts of currencies. In the end, I need it in rands and I'm not trading at a volume where I can go, okay, I can sit back and, like things like business in Mauritius is once you have tax problems, in order to have tax problems, you need to have a profitability problem. And I don't know if that helps you. So I trade out of South Africa, and it kind of works. There are restrictions in Nigeria. We had a large job quite a few years ago where we got all our fees locked up in Nigeria, and they're still sitting there, 3.5 million rand equivalent of fees that we cannot move out because we were deceived into a contract with a South African bank actually in Nigeria who made us believe that we could get our fees out when it was illegal to repatriate fees for architects or interior designers. So we were trapped by a South African client in Nigeria into signing a contract believing we could get our fees out, and we can't. They're still sitting there. So I'm talking too much. I trade through South Africa, and we just try and be straight. Or you always got to deal with the withholding tax. Make sure that you know, make sure that you make clear in your office what happens to withholding tax. Not a question you asked, but make sure that there isn't a tax deduction at source that you weren't aware of. I don't know if my answer has helped you.
no, thank you. It's helpful. It's very inspiring
Okay,
to see how
okay.
flexible you are across borders. Thank you.
Yeah. Ivor,
Hi,
you have your
Henning.
hand? Yes.
Henning, I want to tell a little story about you because you recall a design seminar we had, and you gave a talk on your search for the Holy Grail in architecture. And you went through all these various iconic buildings that you'd been to visit, etc. And what did you end up by showing us what you found at the end of your journey was a windmill in the Karoo.
Mm.
Do you recall that?
Yes, it was actually a windmill in Namibia, but yes, it was definitely
okay.
desert
Yeah,
landscape.
I know it was somewhere.
Yeah. It was a thing I found in the middle of the Namib Desert. Yeah, I remember it clearly.
Yeah, these things do stick in your head, and I just want to touch on the thing about fees that you were talking about, and the fee scales. I totally understand and agree with you about the fee scales being totally irrelevant in many ways because there's no real basis for it, and unless you actually understand the value of what you can bring. And what I learned by working offshore was that a lot of it is to do with working out what your resource time cost is. And you actually set a fee which is relevant to your own need for a particular project, and you set it for that. You don't work on some spurious basis which you actually don't understand. And there's no real understanding to be able to explain that to your client why you're arriving at that value. So it's actually interesting to hear you say how you. And I think that when you talk about discount, and I think this is to the rest of the participants, when you talk about discounting a fee against the fee scale, you're actually acknowledging the fee scale has been relevant, and you then discounting your value relative to what might be a perceived value. And I think that's where we go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, all my fee agreements now are based on time and effort estimates. Of course, I get them wrong sometimes, but that's the risk I take. I also take a risk if I do fees less 40% or fees less 60%. I also take a risk.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've just freed myself from that thing. There's a problem with starting with the tariffs and then adding a discount is that you're unhappy from day one. You're unhappy with a fee from day one because you believe you should be paid more. So every single time you sit down on a project, you go, damn, should have been more, but it's never going to be. So you just undermine. It's like bad karma. It's a waste of time.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
Henning. Thanks for
Thanks,
the chat.
Ava.
Thanks,
Thank
Ella. Richard?
Richard, hi.
Hit myself. How's it, Henning?
How's it, man?
Thanks for
Yeah.
the talk. This is very hard for me to ask because it's not a very nice question. I've been a long time critic of your work. Mainly, I just want to understand, like, you're clearly a sensitive, humane person. And we've had a couple of chats over the years. I really like you. What I find quite difficult to understand, and I understand you work in an economy that's very defined here in South Africa, and the work of yours I've experienced is here in South Africa. My experience of your work is like, how do you align the outcomes of your work and the process of getting them built? You're clearly very good at it, but there's a very inhumane aspect to the buildings, to the environments they create around them, and to what they actually are and how they work. I know that's very often guided by the client and what they're and the funder and what they're prepared to expose themselves to in terms of public environments. But how do you bring that into balance in your own life?
I mean, there are many reasons why I left the previous professional life I had, and I really shouldn't talk any more about the work of Paragon. It's there. I'm not denying I had a part in it. There's many reasons I left where I was. One of them was the nature of the clients. So I think Paragon's work got better over the years. I think there were heavily invested attempts, for example, to manage the front doors of the buildings to make them more inviting. I take your point that a lot of the work was hard. And I said I shouldn't be talking about Paragon. I've left. We are done. It wasn't very pleasant, the departure, but that happens in divorces. I left, and I want to go to the clients, and I'm not a client blamer, but I realized one of the reasons why I started working outside of the country is that me, being an Enneagram number 7 who can't be boxed in, couldn't take the one-trick pony nature of South African clients. Now, I have to, in a public setting, also say I honor the clients we had. They filled my fridge. I'm living in a wonderful Michael Sutton house. It comes from the clients whose company we kept and looked for many years. But my perspective on South African clients, and I'm talking about commercial fund clients, became over the years to me that they are very much one-trick ponies. South Africa has a highly sophisticated property economy in which architects and their clients compete for jobs in bite-sized chunks of about 15,000 to 35,000 square meters, maybe in the current economy from 8.5 to 12,000 square meters. And twice a year or 3 times a year, maybe the economy of South Africa, the commercial property economy, used to throw up buildings in chunks of 60 to 90,000 square meters of, let's say, office space or whatever. And so I became incredibly bored of these one-trick pony clients who had their success formula, their ingredients, and where you had to learn certain client success formulas over and over, and you spent your life having to be back in square one over and over, because if you went to client A, they would teach you something and you became good at learning how they do things, from the cores to the front doors to the site plans to the basements. And then you're good at that. And then you look for more work and you go to client B, who is a similar kind of client. So you think you want more work there. And then you find out that that client goes, hey, yeah, you've been working for client A, you know nothing. I'll tell you how we do cores. And you go, but your core's shit. And they'll go, don't tell me my core's shit. I am Mr. So-and-so from Property Fund B. And until you learn how we do cores, you know nothing. Okay, so like take your so I'm diverting, Richard. I believe that I had to leave that room and I left it already in Paragon to go outside of the country where clients know much more about things that are not the architecture and where they they need to like rely on me more. I like the feeling that that the clients outside of the country didn't know. Like I sat in Angola in 2002, 2003, trying to explain to a client who wanted to do a 30-story building why it needs foundations. And it was one of the weirdest and worst and best days of my life. We got called to Angola. We were shown a site that was tiny, and we had a client. The project was called Karl Marx Tower, and we had to do a 35-story kind of residential tower. So I sat, we did a sketch. I flew back after 2 weeks of work and I sat with the client and he went, oh, I love your concept. This is great. When can we start building? I went, who's the engineer? He went, why do you need an engineer? I said, you need an engineer. You're doing a 30-story building. He said, what for? I said, it falls over without foundations. You need foundations. The client went, really? He says, Henning, how much does this building weigh? I'm like, fuck, I have no idea. How much does a 35-story building weigh? I don't know. He looked at me, he went, how much does it weigh? Don't you know? I said, 450,000 tons. I just made it up because I had to have a number. So the client said, okay. So you see my site over there. You putting a 30-story thing weighing 450,000 tons on my piece of land. He says, it's not going to go anywhere. Where's it going to go? Who's going to move it? So, Richard, I like the rooms I went into, and I'm still in them in part, are those rooms where the clients, I'll call them all clients, know so little, bless their souls, that I'm often in square one. And so I love the being in square one, and that's become my joy, is to go into rooms where there's so little prior knowledge that I deploy myself in whole other ways. And I'm not evading your question. I'm trying to paint a picture of the journey I went on to go, fuck, this is fascinating. How much does a building weigh? Like, God, I don't know. And why do we need foundations? Structures 101 in first year at Wits. Why do we need foundations? Yeah, of course, I told them about friction and piles and different foundations. But like, what an amazing thing to be in the mid-career and having to explain to a client why they need foundations for a 30-story building. So, there are so many layers of a building and so many places to apply myself and to get rid of my knowledge, to deploy myself, not apply myself. I love the word deployment. Like we deploy cadres, but we also deploy our architectural skills. That I've now, after deploying myself in a limiting setting for many years with clients who were good to us, I think to the work that I used to co-author, it was often hard. I think it became softer, and Paragon certainly worked very hard at making office buildings more engaging than not having the palisade fence across the front, not having to check through security first. I always said, like, and I still say it, how does a courier driver get into my building? Doesn't want to check in, doesn't want to stop, doesn't want to park, just wants to drop off a parcel, and he's got 34 more deliveries today. So I've tried to push that. I'm not saying I'm the good guy, but it's always fascinated me. Now I've found more than one client who is interested in how we make things and what things are. We have this amazing client in Tanzania who has a genuine total fascination with trees and their spiritual life. So we're starting to work with trees as spiritual presences. We're doing a secret government complex in Dodoma, in the middle of nowhere, 50,000 square meters of government offices. And we're relocating a forest of baobab trees to do justice to the site and reconcile it in a certain way with what the project's bringing to the place. So I've certainly taken a bit of control over the kind of projects I engage in by seeking out slightly different clients. And there are so many clients and so many ways of being. What is so amazing about South Africa, because there's one architect for every 12,000 South African people or something. Like we're in an institute setting. You can take the population of South Africa and you can divide it by the number of architects and technologists, and you get to something like 12,000 people for one architect. I have a German passport. I worked in Berlin. I could be working in Berlin, but in Berlin, it's one architect for every 380 people. So and that's why it's so awful to work there, because the place is full of architects and you can't breathe and you can't deploy yourself, and you have to be in practice for 30 years drawing handrail details until you get to come up for air for your first full building. So why am I telling you this? I believe that South Africa still, even in this tight economy, has so many entry places and so many ways of being an architect. And so, speaking to you, who you said it was difficult to say what you said. I don't think it's difficult at all. I appreciate what you said as a colleague. I value your criticism. I can't even say that wasn't me and I didn't do that. I think you're right. The beautiful thing is that, and this is where architects make could be a room like this is such an amazing setting. But how often do we acknowledge how valid the different ways of practice are? Because I see you in your practice and I admire what you do. And that was your choice, or maybe a combination of choice and circumstance. But you chose your path of what's important to you, and you do your great work in a certain setting around the things that are important to you. I ended up in a practice that I never thought I would have, beyond my wildest dreams. In fact, when I was in varsity, if I look back at the work that you do, that was my vision for myself. I thought I would be the kind of architect that Richard Stretton is now. It's just that life happened differently for me. And so I went with a journey that wasn't my expectation. And that left behind a certain track record, and that had certain amazing opportunities and certain limitations. So I freed myself up from certain limitations and I'm started again. People have asked me why I didn't go into development, why I didn't go into anything else. My coach said, "Why do you want to go back into architecture? Are you insane? Nobody would. Do something else." But I couldn't. I explored the something else, but it didn't tickle my fancy at all. But I'm talking too much. Are you getting something out of this answer in response to what you asked?
Yeah, Henning, it's great to. Why'd you mute that? To hear. I mean, don't not recognize that I see the bravery and humility that you've shown in being able to walk away from something successful and stand up for your principles and move into a new life that is far more connected to who you are. I mean, do you think that there's a way that we can actually, from this like deeply paranoid 25 years of development that we've looking at in the way South African cities have been developed and the completely like weird outcomes that we have, these environments that don't treat the pedestrian with any respect, these environments that don't have public toilets in them, no matter how much we've built and developed, these are like notwithstanding our the national development plan and the constitution of the country, the physical form of what we built is the most alienating, ostracizing environment. The way Durban and Joburg and a lot of Cape Town has expanded is is an extremely exclusionary environment, notwithstanding a national development plan. So my last question is, no, it's not really a question. It's just a thing. Do you think we can save it? Do you think we can dial it back? I mean, so much money's in the ground in Rosebank. There's so much unnecessary bulk of office space in the country. It's so fascinating. You know, like it's almost like we need it's as much of a violation as the sort of the way the money is used to develop this country is as much of a violation of human rights as GD, what's this violence against women thing? You know, we're in a crazy space at the moment. It's manifest on so many levels.
Yeah. Look, can we dial it back as architects? We can't. We can dial it back fractionally within the sphere of influence we have. I can go off on a whole other tangent about citizenship. And I think that's where you're talking. If I look at you, you're a citizen architect. Okay, you see the society you want and you see your role in it, you see your agency or lack of it, and that, let me say, makes you get out of bed. That's my perspective on you or your practice. And I believe that how can we dial it back? I am astounded that South African citizens, call them consumers because citizens consume the place they live in. We are such bad consumers. We are not nearly angry enough. So architects can't dial this back. South Africans are not nearly angry enough. And I wish we were more angry. I'm not saying there aren't service delivery protests and stuff, but we are not nearly angry enough. Because if we got angry about what we're being dished up by everybody, and we got angry and suspicious of our complicity in it, I'm not talking about architects, I'm talking about everybody. Moving the crime down the street, putting an electric fence on my wall so that my neighbor gets nailed. Like all of that. If we got angry enough, we could have a groundswell revolution, I'll use that word, to change our destiny. But architects are not going to dial it back. A government policy is not going to dial it back. We are really bad consumers of our current, well, we are bad consumers and we are not nearly demanding enough. And until we as citizens become much more demanding, and I'm not saying that there are people who need a lot and want a lot and are already demanding a lot, until the powerful people of this country who call the shots and deploy the money become angry, this is not going to change. That doesn't mean you or me or anybody in this room shouldn't get out of bed to make it better, because we have our own journeys of the butterfly effect and working where we can and deploying ourselves with the agency that we can. But we should be stoking up the anger, like properly. Okay? Voice it. Make it a political issue. When is the next election? And I still believe that elections matter. And what are the issues that get discussed? How do we make the anger about what you've just described a national issue? Like, how do we do that? Is it architects? I think it's bigger. We're bad citizens. We deserve the shit collectively. I'm talking about 60 million people. We deserve the shit because we know how to bitch and complain, but we're not actually angry enough. Bitching and complaining is not anger. Bitching and complaining is an observation from the sidelines into something which you believe you have no control over and which other people are fucking up. When actually your own lack of demand is busy fucking it up. And now I'm talking as my Henning, the citizen. Architect is second. I'm astounded at how little anger we have collectively.
Henning, a mouthful. Thank you, Richard. Colleagues, thank you for staying on for this long. This has been the longest talk we've had. But it was worth it, Henning. It was looking at things from a very different perspective, as presented by an architect. So we really appreciate your time, and thank you so much, colleagues, for joining. See you on the next one.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
I can just say. Yeah.
Just go, okay, you've unmuted yourself.
I want to close it down. Oh, yeah, indeed.